My wife sold her body to strangers, and I found out too late to save whatever was left of myself. I didn't catch her naked in our bed with another man. I didn't come home early to some cliché lipstick-smeared nightmare. No, my betrayal was slower, meaner. It rotted me out one lie at a time until I barely recognized my own reflection. The night it broke open, she kissed me goodbye like it was any other night. Told me she loved me. Told me she'd be home late from work. And then she walked straight into the arms of another life, a life she thought I'd never see. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand how a man goes from everything to nothing. You need to see it the way I did, second by second, minute by minute, until every word that comes out of her mouth feels like broken glass in your hands. It didn't start with secrets. It started with laughter. Her laughter, a little too bright, a little too loud, echoing off walls that used to be safe. Walls that kept our promises tucked in neatly at night. Now they only echoed back the lies she kept hidden behind perfect smiles. The first time I noticed something was wrong, it wasn't anything big. It never is. Julia was late coming home from work. No text. No call. Nothing. When she finally walked through the door 2 hours later than usual, she smelled different. Not perfume. Not soap. A weight, a heaviness, clinging to her skin like she had been somewhere thick with sweat and noise and smoke. Rough day? I asked, pretending not to notice how she flinched when I leaned in for a kiss. She smiled, bright, brittle, and said, "You have no idea." I believed her. Because that's what you do when you love someone. You believe them, even when the lie stings in your throat. It kept happening. Little things. Tiny shifts. Her phone was always face down now. Her texts came with long, deliberate pauses, like she had to think carefully before answering even the simplest questions. She started staying late at work more often. Started working weekends. Started saying she was tired, always too tired. At night, she curled up on the far edge of the bed, pretending to sleep. And I lay awake staring at the ceiling, counting the spaces between her breaths. We used to fit together without thinking. Now, even in sleep, she pulled away. One night, I made dinner. Her favorite, carbonara from scratch, just like she loved. She barely touched it. "Not hungry," she said, picking at her fork. "Something wrong?" I asked. She smiled, wide and fake. "Just tired. Always tired. Always empty." I wanted to reach across the table, grab her hand, shake the truth out of her. But I didn't. Because I already knew. Not the details. Not the names. Not the places. But the shape of it. The sickness growing between us. Something was bleeding out behind her eyes, and no amount of pretending could glue it back together. Then came the night she didn't come home at all. The first time, she blamed it on a friend. "Kara's place," she said, voice tight and hurried. Girls' night got out of hand. I didn't want to drive. I nodded, smiled, pretended like something in my chest hadn't just cracked down the center. She curled up against me that night like nothing had changed. Like she wasn't lying with every breath. I started keeping a notebook, tracking the excuses, mapping the nights she disappeared. I wasn't looking for proof. Not yet. I was looking for a pattern. Something to tell me that I wasn't crazy. That the woman I loved hadn't simply slipped through my fingers like water, leaving only this stranger behind. The first real fracture came 2 weeks later. I found a receipt in her purse while looking for her car keys. A hotel downtown. One I knew too well, not because we stayed there, but because of what it was known for. A place for secrets. A place for things you didn't want written down. I held the receipt in my hand, the ink smudged slightly with sweat, and I felt the ground shift under me. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to scream, to accuse, to demand the truth. But something colder stopped me. I wasn't ready to hear her lie to my face again. Not yet. So I smiled. I kissed her goodbye the next morning, like always. Watched her walk out the door in her tailored dress, heels clicking confidently on the pavement. I told her I loved her. She told me she loved me too. And the words tasted like poison on my tongue. It became a sickness. Every time Julia left the house, I found a reason to follow her. Not obviously. Not in some messy, jealous, drunken rage. Quietly. Carefully. Like a man shadowing a ghost he's already buried. It wasn't hard. She had patterns she didn't even realize. A favorite coffee shop. A new gym she said was closer to the office. The same gas station on the same corner, even when cheaper ones were a block away. I tracked it all, writing everything down like a lunatic. Thursday night, she said she was meeting clients for dinner. I watched her drive 15 minutes in the wrong direction and park behind a rundown brick building with no sign out front. I waited in the dark, Engine off, window cracked to keep from suffocating. She didn't come out for 3 hours. When she did, her hair was mussed, her lipstick wiped half away. But maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just stress. Maybe I was insane. That's what I kept telling myself. I was the problem. I was paranoid. I was broken. It was easier than facing the possibility that she was. The next night, I asked her about it. About work. About the dinner. She didn't even hesitate. Went great, she said, peeling off her coat. Boring, honestly. You would have hated it. Her earrings were new. Gold hoops. Simple. Elegant. Not something she would buy for herself. But when I asked where they came from, she laughed. A little treat, she said. Felt like spoiling myself. I smiled, bit my tongue until I tasted blood. Because there was no receipt for them in the bank account. No charge. No withdrawal. Nothing. They had simply appeared. Like everything else. Days blurred into nights. I stopped going to work some mornings. Called in sick. Sat at the kitchen table, staring at the front door. Waiting. Waiting for her to slip. Waiting for some piece of the facade to crack wide open. But she was good. God, she was good. Every lie wrapped in a perfect smile. Every excuse delivered with a kiss. I stopped sleeping altogether. When she climbed into bed beside me, I'd lie there, eyes open, listening to the small sounds she made, the way her breathing hitched sometimes, like even in her dreams she was running from something. Or maybe toward it. One morning, she forgot her phone. It buzzed against the kitchen counter, rattling like a wasp in a jar. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. No text. Just a calendar reminder. Check-in, 11:30 a.m., Redwood. Redwood wasn't the name of any company she worked with. It wasn't the name of any hotel downtown. But I knew Redwood. It was a building. A beautiful, towering place near the river, sleek glass walls, valet parking. The kind of place you went when you didn't want to be seen coming out of somewhere dirty. The kind of place you rented by the hour, if you knew the right people. I closed the phone, put it exactly where she left it, and sat down at the table, staring at nothing, feeling the walls press in. At 11, I parked across the street from Redwood. Dark-tinted windows. Expensive cars pulling in and out. I spotted her immediately, Julia stepping from her car in black heels, tight jeans, a silk blouse knotted at the waist. Her hair loose and shining under the noon sun. She looked dangerous. Like a woman who knew exactly what she was doing. Exactly where she was going. She didn't hesitate. Didn't check her phone. Didn't look around. She walked straight into the building and vanished. I waited. An hour. 2. No sign of her. My mind spun wild pictures. Business meetings. Photo shoots. Secret interviews. Maybe she was planning something for us. A surprise. A vacation. A new job. Maybe. Maybe. But as I sat there, heart cramping in my chest, I knew none of those stories fit. Not with the way she moved. Not with the look on her face, all sharp angles and quick flickers of nerve she couldn't quite hide. When she came out, she wasn't alone. A man, older, dressed too sharply, walked a few steps behind her. He didn't touch her, but he watched her. The way you watch something you think you own. Julia didn't look back, didn't slow down, just slid into her car, fired up the engine, and peeled out of the lot. The man lingered a moment longer, smiling to himself, before strolling toward the elevators and vanishing back inside. That night, she came home with takeout. Thai, my favorite. She acted like everything was normal. Kissed me. Told me she missed me all day. I ate the food mechanically, pretending not to taste the bitterness hiding under every bite. When she kissed me goodnight, I let her. When she curled against my side, I held her. Because some part of me, the stupid, broken part, still wanted to believe this wasn't happening. That she was mine. That she was still here. But the Redwood receipt I found 2 days later told me otherwise. It wasn't in her purse. Wasn't in her wallet. It was crumpled in the trash, shoved deep under old food wrappers and junk mail. For $100. No explanation. Just a room number and a checkout time that matched exactly when I saw her leaving. No client name. No conference listing. Nothing. I didn't ask her about it. Not yet. Because if I asked, she'd lie. And if she lied, I'd believe her. And I wasn't ready to die yet. I started recording everything. I don't know when exactly the idea hit me, somewhere between the sleepless nights and the hollow mornings where I watched her brush her hair and tell me she loved me like it was a spell to keep the world turning. I bought a little black notebook. I wrote down every time she left, every time she came home late, every outfit she wore, every excuse she gave. It read like a ledger for a crime I couldn't name. Tuesday, 8:14 p.m. Late conference call. Client pushback. Red dress. New black heels. Came back at 1:32 a.m. Smelling like cigarettes. We don't smoke. Thursday, 7:45 p.m. Work dinner. Little gold bracelet I hadn't seen before. Stayed out all night. Claimed too many drinks. Slept at Karis. Saturday, 10:03 a.m. Meeting with marketing team. No explanation for why she needed an overnight bag. I filled page after page after page. And with every new entry, something inside me rotted a little more. Julia's smiles got easier, sharper, more practiced. She had always been beautiful, not the polished magazine cover kind, but a beauty that glowed when she laughed too hard at her own bad jokes, when she danced barefoot in the kitchen, when she fell asleep drooling on my chest after movie marathons. Now, that softness was gone, replaced with something sharper, hungrier. Like every time she walked out the door, she was chasing something I couldn't give her, and worse, didn't want from me anymore. One night, I dreamed of her. In the dream, she was standing across a wide river, naked, smiling, waving for me to follow. I tried to step into the water, but it turned to black oil, swallowing my legs, pulling me under. When I woke, I was gasping, heart hammering against my ribs, nails digging into my palms. Julia was next to me, breathing softly, smelling faintly of a cologne I didn't wear. I turned away, curling into myself, pretending to sleep. I started noticing the little things more. How she laughed more on her phone than she did with me. How she disappeared into the bathroom for long calls, music playing loud to cover her voice. How she changed her passwords, not just her phone, but her laptop, her tablet. How she started wearing lingerie to bed, but not for me. She'd slip under the covers in black lace and silk, turn off the light, and roll away from me without a word. It was like sleeping beside a beautiful corpse. Then came the gifts. Not to me. To herself. New bags. New jewelry. Shoes with labels we couldn't afford, even on her salary. And when I asked, she shrugged. Bonus season, she said. Networking perks, she said. You know, little thank yous for all the hard work. She said it so easily, so smoothly, as if she had said it 100 times before to someone else. One afternoon, I drove past her office. No car. No sign of her. I waited an hour, parked across the street like a stalker, sweat prickling under my jacket. Nothing. When she got home that night, she carried a shopping bag from a boutique I knew she hadn't been near. When I asked about her day, she grinned and said, same old grind. She didn't even blush, didn't even flinch. I smiled back, feeling the floor tilt under me. That weekend, she said she needed space. Said she was stressed from work. Needed a self-care day. I told her to take all the time she needed. Told her I'd be here when she got back. Watched her pack a small overnight bag, too small for a trip, too big for a quick spa day. Watched her hug me lightly, kiss my cheek, and drive away without looking back. I waited exactly 2 hours. Then I got in my car and followed. She wasn't headed downtown. Wasn't headed to the beach, or the mall, or the spa. She was headed toward the city's old quarter, the part of town they'd tried to clean up, but never could. The part of town where people disappeared into shadows and no one asked questions. I parked a block behind her. Watched her walk into a building I didn't recognize. Tall, gray stone, windows blacked out. No sign. No name. No reason. She didn't come out for hours. I waited until my body went stiff and numb. Waited until every excuse I could invent curdled in my gut. When she finally emerged, she wasn't alone. 2 men stepped out after her, not touching, not speaking, but too close to be coincidence. Julia said something I couldn't hear. One of them laughed. And then they all drifted apart into the dark, as if the night itself had swallowed them whole. She came home later, buzzing with fake energy. Told me all about her spa day. The massage. The facial. The organic tea. She even showed me a tiny bottle of lavender oil from her gift bag. She lied so well it almost sounded sweet. Almost. Later that night, I found the bottle of oil stuffed into the pocket of the overnight bag, still sealed in plastic, price tag dangling. It had never been opened. Just another prop in the theater of her lies. I lay awake again, counting the cracks in the ceiling, counting the lies between us, counting the minutes until something finally broke. Because it was coming. I could feel it like a storm just past the horizon. Not here yet, but close enough that the sky was starting to bleed. By the next week, I wasn't even pretending to be normal anymore. Every conversation with Julia felt like a chess match where I had already lost 5 moves ago. Every smile she threw over her shoulder was another nail hammered into the coffin I was too afraid to bury. I stopped asking where she was going, stopped asking who she was texting, stopped asking anything at all, because the answers were never real, and the lies were smoother than the truth ever used to be. Instead, I watched, became part of the furniture in my own home, silent, still, gathering dust while she lived out whatever life she was building on the ashes of ours. Some nights, I'd find her sitting on the back porch, staring at the stars with a glass of wine she never touched. Her face was unreadable. Her body relaxed, but her hand gripped the wine glass so tightly I could see the tendon straining under her skin. What was she thinking about? Who was she waiting for? It sure as hell wasn't me anymore. There were times she slipped. Small things. A name muttered in sleep, not mine. A bruise high on her thigh she claimed came from bumping into the bedpost. A business card I found under the couch with no company name, just a number written in blocky black ink. When I dialed it from a burner phone one afternoon, it rang 4 times before disconnecting. No voicemail. No greeting. Nothing. Just dead air. Like it wasn't meant to be answered. Julia started keeping odd hours. Sometimes she'd leave at noon and not come home until dawn. Other days, she'd stay in, restless, pacing the floors like a caged animal. When I asked if everything was okay, she smiled and kissed me. Hard. Desperate. And I could taste the metallic tang of guilt on her tongue. I started following her more aggressively. Became a ghost behind the wheel, tailing her car through traffic, around corners, across the city. Sometimes she'd stop at cafes and sit alone for hours, staring blankly at her phone. Sometimes she'd meet women I didn't recognize, laughing too loud, hugging too tight. Sometimes, and these nights burned the worst, she'd vanish into buildings with no signs, no logos, and no explanations. Places that didn't show up on Google Maps. Places that didn't want to be found. One night, I followed her to a narrow building tucked between 2 warehouses on the industrial side of town. A black door. A single light bulb flickering over the entrance. She knocked twice. The door opened a crack. Someone let her in without a word. And then the door slammed shut. No signs. No address numbers. Just cold brick and empty windows staring down like dead eyes. I waited. Hours passed. Cars came and went, expensive, sleek, tinted windows hiding the faces inside. I counted them. 3, 7, 10. All dropping off men in dark suits and hungry smiles. Some stayed 20 minutes. Some stayed longer. Not one of them looked around when they left. Julia didn't emerge until nearly 2 in the morning. Her hair was messy. Her dress was wrinkled. Her shoes were in her hand. She didn't look broken. She didn't look scared. She looked lighter, like she had shed something heavy and rotten and left it behind those black walls. She drove home with the windows down, the night wind ripping her hair into a wild halo around her face. She sang along to the radio aloud, off-key, giddy. I followed her at a distance, headlights off, heart hammering a furious beat against my ribs. When she got home, she dumped her shoes by the door, padded barefoot into the kitchen, poured herself a glass of wine, and leaned against the counter humming. Like a woman who had nothing left to hide. Like a woman who had already buried the man waiting upstairs for her. I didn't confront her. Not that night. Not the next. Because I needed more. Because if I was going to tear her world apart, I needed to be sure. I needed something undeniable. Something she couldn't smile and kiss and lie her way out of. So I waited. I watched. I rotted. And every day, the truth pressed closer to the surface. A black, festering wound ready to split open and drown us both. I started talking to myself. At first, it was little things, muttered curses when I dropped my keys, whispered arguments in the shower with an invisible Julia. But soon it wasn't little anymore. I'd pace the kitchen at midnight, rehearsing conversations that would never happen, accusations I would never throw. I'd argue with the empty living room, fists clenched, heart pounding, imagining her standing there smiling that brittle, pitying smile that made my blood turn to ice. I became a ghost in my own house. She filled the space with noise, music, phone calls, laughter too sharp, too forced, while I drifted from room to room, unseen, unheard. She started leaving more often. Weekend trips that sprang up last minute. Late-night meetings that dragged into the early hours. Always with the same tired words. Work is crazy right now. Don't wait up for me, babe. Every lie wore a new coat of polish, a little brighter, a little smoother. And every time she slipped out the door, it felt like a blade twisting deeper into a wound that had never stopped bleeding. One night, after she left claiming she had a team-building retreat, I opened her closet. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I'd find something. Maybe I just wanted to smell her clothes one last time, the old Julia, The one who used to curl up in my lap and whisper stupid jokes in my ear until we fell asleep smiling. But what I found was worse. The closet was half empty. Dresses gone. Shoes missing. A suitcase I hadn't seen in months tucked neatly back into place, like it had never left. She wasn't packing for work trips. She was packing for a second life. A life I wasn't invited into. I sat down on the bed, our bed, and stared at the empty hangers. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to really think it. Maybe she doesn't love you anymore. Not some paranoid whisper. Not some drunken, self-loathing mutter at 3 a.m. A clear, clean truth. Cold as the sheets she rarely wrinkled anymore. I started noticing bruises on her arms. Small, fingertip-sized, blooming purple and blue just under the skin. When I asked, she brushed it off. Gym accident, she said, smiling too quickly. She never went to the gym. Not anymore. She didn't even own a membership card to the new place she claimed to go. I checked. I called. No record of her name. No account. Nothing. Another lie. Another layer of dirt thrown onto the grave she was digging between us. Her money changed, too. Cash. Always cash. Neat little stacks folded into her wallet, tucked into the glove compartment of her car. Crisp bills she never explained, and I stopped asking about. What was the point? She'd just tell me some story, a bonus, a refund, a client gift, and I would nod and smile and pretend that the smell of strange cologne on her skin didn't burn my throat raw. The house itself felt different, colder, emptier. She stopped lighting candles, stopped cooking, stopped decorating for holidays. All the things she used to do, all the small, stupid rituals that built our life together, gone. Replaced with silence and late nights and a bed that smelled more and more like no one. Sometimes, when she was out, working late, I'd sit on the edge of the bed and imagine her walking back through the door, smiling that easy, messy smile, dropping her bag, kicking off her heels, climbing into my lap like she used to. Sometimes I imagined her apologizing, saying it was all a mistake, saying she still loved me. Most nights, I didn't imagine anything at all. Just sat there, waiting, listening to the walls breathe. I stopped shaving, stopped doing laundry, stopped eating anything that didn't come out of a box or a can. Every morning, I woke up a little more hollow than the day before. Every night, I watched her vanish a little further away, until the woman slipping into our bed wasn't my wife anymore. She was a ghost wearing her face, a stranger wrapped in the skin of someone I used to love. Still, I waited. Still, I smiled. Still, I kissed her goodbye when she left. Because whatever storm she was building outside these walls, whatever hurricane she was feeding with every lie, every late night, every missing dress, I was going to stand in its center. And when it broke, I was going to make sure she felt every piece of it. The night it broke open, there were no fireworks, no screaming, no slamming doors, just silence. Heavy, wet, suffocating. Julia said she had another late meeting, said it like it was a prayer she didn't believe in anymore. She wore a short black dress, new heels, a clutch I'd never seen before. The way she smiled when she said goodbye made something in my chest wither and die. But I kissed her forehead, waved from the porch, watched her car vanish into the night. And then I moved. I wasn't alone this time. I'd hired a private investigator 2 weeks ago, a quiet man with a quiet car and a camera that didn't flash. He followed her while I sat at home with the walls closing in, pacing the kitchen like a wolf in a cage. At midnight, my phone buzzed. A text. Come. An address. No hesitation. I grabbed my keys and drove. Hands steady. Heart dead. The address led me downtown. A high-rise, sleek, glassy, expensive. The kind of place you didn't visit unless you had money to burn or secrets to keep. I parked across the street. Waited. Watched. At 12:17 a.m., I saw her. Julia. Stepping out of the lobby. Her heels clicked against the marble, her hair loose around her shoulders. And she wasn't alone. A man, older, wearing a wedding ring that gleamed under the lights, handed her a thick envelope. Cash. No doubt. He leaned in, whispered something against her ear. Julia laughed, a low, throaty sound I hadn't heard directed at me in over a year, and kissed his cheek. Then she tucked the envelope into her clutch and sauntered down the street, hips swaying. Free. Satisfied. Untouched by shame. The PI pulled up beside me, window down. Got pictures, he said simply. I nodded. I didn't need them. I had seen enough with my own eyes. When Julia came home at 2:43 a.m., she smelled like expensive cologne and cheap wine. She dropped her heels by the door. tossed her clutch on the counter, smiled at me, wide, dazzling, false. "Hey, babe," she said, voice syrupy. "Miss me?" I smiled back. "Always." She didn't notice how still I was. Didn't notice the way my fists curled tight at my sides. She was too busy humming under her breath, slipping upstairs, shedding her dress like a snake leaving behind dead skin. The next morning, I made her coffee. Just like always. Cream. 2 sugars. She kissed my cheek. Told me she loved me. And I smiled so wide it hurt. Because today wasn't going to be like always. Today was the day she found out just how much I've been paying attention. I waited until she left for work. Then I moved. Step 1. Copies. Copies of the photos. Copies of the receipts. Copies of the hotel records I pulled with the PI's help. All neatly arranged into manila envelopes. One for her boss. One for her mother. One for her best friend Kara, who, judging by the timesheets, had been used as an alibi more times than I could count. And one, the thickest, for Julia herself. Step 2. Messages. I scheduled emails to blast at noon, right in the middle of her client lunch. Photos attached. Receipts attached. Every lie she told, cross-referenced, time-stamped, undeniable. Step 3. The apartment. I had already signed the lease a week ago, a 1-bedroom on the other side of town. Cheap. Small. Perfect. All my essentials were already there. I didn't need much. I wasn't taking anything but my dignity. And the dog. She could keep the fancy house and her piles of blood money heels. I'd keep my soul. At exactly noon, I sent the texts. Check your inbox. Hope the meeting's going well. Thought you should see this. 3 minutes later, my phone exploded with calls. Julia, Kara, her mother, even her boss. I let them ring. Smiling. Driving. Free. At 12:21 p.m., Julia finally showed up at the house. Banged on the door like a madwoman. Screaming. Crying. Begging. I opened the window upstairs, leaned out, and looked at her. Tears streaked her mascara. Her hands shook. She looked like a woman on the edge of collapse. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "You did this," she shrieked, voice raw. I smiled down at her. "You did this," I said quietly. "I just made sure everyone else could see it." She broke. Right there on the front lawn, sobbing into her hands, shrieking apologies to a man who didn't exist anymore. The man who loved her. The man who trusted her. The man who would have forgiven anything. Once. He was dead. She killed him. I turned and walked away. Closed the window. Locked the door. Got into my car and drove to my new life. The final texts I sent her were simple. "Divorce papers coming soon. Lose my number. You can sell your body to whoever you want now. I just won't be paying for it anymore." I never looked back. Not once. Not even when I heard the sirens down the block, the ones Kara must have called when Julia collapsed screaming in the street. Not even when my phone lit up with new desperate messages, new promises, new lies. Because when you burn your home to the ground, you don't stand around to mourn the ashes. You walk away. And you don't stop walking. Subscribe to hear more stories.